I want to show you other clips that I actually think are positive of Tulsi Gabbard, so you have a well-rounded opinion. Here is her on Wall Street taking over the Democratic Party and, frankly, Washington, D.C.
Directly about that. And we were talking about the guy who's, what do you call himself, a recovering kind of finance guy from Wall Street who's left and has now come here to LA. And he talked directly about that. And we were talking about how even after 2008, all the too big to fail banks, they were bailed out and people are suffering, they're losing their homes, their pensions, and all of this stuff. These banks are bigger today than they were back then. And over time, and even over the last few years, Congress is slowly, and this is not just Republicans, there are Democrats who are on the take too, who are taking this Wall Street money, and you're starting to see these bills pass, peeling away the very small amount of regulations that were put on after that crash to get us back to an even worse situation than we were back in 2000. Why? Well, how could we allow this to happen? There's a ton of money that's coming from Wall Street and funding politicians' campaigns, lobbyists who are there helping to write the legislation or kill the bad bills. And again, who's talking about this?
No one.
Right.
Well, that's not exactly true. There's this, disheveled socialist Jew from Vermont who's talking about it. But on the merits of what she's saying, I love it. Because most people know Tulsi Gabbard, frankly, for her views on foreign policy. But she does have very, very progressive domestic views as well. I want to play you her views on the for-profit prison system, which needs to be talked about a lot more. Here we go.
Making money off of keeping people in prison, then you have a serious problem. The fact that we have a criminal justice system that is so broken that we're allowing these corporations to make money off of keeping their prison beds filled, we are doing a disservice to those people, to our communities, our family, and every taxpayer who's paying money for these private prisons.
I mean, it seems an obvious conflict of interest.
Exactly. You have no incentive whatsoever to actually, help rehabilitate people, help provide people with transitional training, with drug rehab, with all of these other things that can help people who have been incarcerated for one reason or another leave and never come back. And that's one of the bills that one of the good news stories that actually has happened recently in Congress was we passed this bill called the First Step Act that deals specifically with this prison reform issue to help make sure that those who don't belong in prison, like nonviolent drug offenders, don't go there in the first place, and to make it so that those who are there and those who are the returning, the returning inmates, we're actually addressing what is it that you need to make so you don't keep coming back. And that was something that faced some opposition on both sides of the aisle, but again, it's one of those examples where when you focus on, okay, we may come at this from different directions. Like some folks are more concerned about the social cost and the impact on families and communities and how you're criminalizing people. Others are more concerned about the fiscal impact and how much money we're spending on these people cycling through our prisons. Regardless, we both want the same outcome, which is less people in our prisons and bringing down the costs, both economic and social. And so that was a bill that we passed through the House. It's sitting before the Senate right now, but it has support from the White House. And ironically, there is a Republican senator in the Senate who is the #1 opposition.
So that's her on the for-profit system, which I couldn't agree with more. Here is her on the Russia hysteria.
What is missing, all of the news coverage around this and all of the outrage about how this foreign country is trying to influence our elections, which is wrong and which the American people need to be aware of, where this information is coming from, is the fact that and you're saying, why does somebody do that? Well, because this country does want to influence who we're electing, right?
Yes.
Like, we'd rather work with this person. We know that person's not going to be nice to us. The United States has been doing this for a very long time.
Sure.
In countries around the world, both overtly and covertly, through these kinds of disinformation campaigns, not even counting like the outright regime change wars. We're going to physically take you out. And I think it is very hypocritical for us to be discussing this issue as a country without actually being honest about how this goes both ways.
So finally, a little sense on Russia. A little sense on Russia. Because, we've basically been huffing and puffing on Russia stealing our holy democracy and democracy. Oh, wherefore art thou democracy? No, we've been doing this worse. We've actually rigged foreign elections way worse than Russian trolls, putting some stuff on social media. So overall, here's what I think Tulsi Gabbard running does. I think Tulsi Gabbard running definitely gets a very much needed position out there, because I think she is frankly to the left of Bernie Sanders when it comes to ending our military involvement all around the world, stopping inserting, military policy that is essentially for regime change. Basically, as a war veteran, she wants to go to war as a last resort. She wants to get involved in other countries with bombs or ground troops as a last resort if the United States has an urgent security threat. I think that is very, very sound. And she also has drawn the connection between our involvement all around the world and basically toppling dictators and brutal dictators we topple to put in equally as brutal dictators that kill their citizens with, hey, the roads here are crumbling. Hey, we have no Medicare. We don't have Medicare for all. We're spending all this money around the world, yet we're told we don't have the money to pay for domestic programs that would help working people. I think Tulsi Gabbard, frankly, to me, is more progressive than Elizabeth Warren. I think she seems to be equal to, if not progressive to Elizabeth Warren on economic policy. She is for $15 minimum wage. She is for tighter regulations on Wall Street. She is for, I believe she's for the idea of a universal or, guaranteed jobs. She is definitely for the reinserting Glass-Steagall. And more importantly, I think she is to the left of Elizabeth Warren when it comes to foreign policy. Elizabeth Warren voted for this $715 billion military budget. Tulsi Gabbard did not. Elizabeth Warren has kind of subtly said she thinks we need to get the troops out of Afghanistan, but she really has and Syria, but she hasn't really put forth the plan how to do that and how soon. Yeah, there was another person who campaigned on getting troops out of Afghanistan. His name was Barack Obama. How'd that work out? So you could talk all you want about getting troops out of Afghanistan and Syria, but Elizabeth Warren is suddenly saying it now after she just voted for a $715 billion defense budget. So those two things are at odds. But my final analysis on Tulsi Gabbard, and I hope you watch me for the truth, so I'm not going to just be like, rah, rah, Tulsi. I have to report to you if there are concerning things. To me, first and foremost, she needs to answer, in 2019, what are your personal views on same-sex marriage, on abortion, and on homosexuality? You cannot be considered as a formidable progressive candidate if you personally think homosexuality is immoral, if you personally are against same-sex marriage, if you personally are against abortion. I understand that there's people who believe this, and it's part of their religious faith, but as a progressive, and a lot of you are progressive watching, that's not part of the progressive package. Obviously, we could have a difference of opinions on certain things, but to me, one of the core tenets of being a progressive is you're not just against the government deciding who could marry, who's moral, against government interference in people's lives as far as marriage and equal rights, but you personally believe in that too. If she doesn't come out, as recently as 2015, as I showed you, she was still personally against same-sex marriage. So she needs to answer for that. And I think it has to be genuine. Only you could decide if her answer is genuine. There's another thing that I personally want to toss into this that I haven't spoken about, but I always believe that actions speak louder than words. A politician can say a lot of things, but what do they do? Other than Jill Stein, Tulsi Gabbard was the only sitting politician nationally in Congress that came to Standing Rock. That's a big deal. I interviewed her at Standing Rock when I was with the Young Turks. It says a lot that she, as a military veteran, saw that this was essentially a state of war. You know what? Let me show you just a short clip from that. I don't generally like to play clips from the Young Turks, but I'll show you a little bit of this because I think it says a lot about who she is. Here we go.
I am out here with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who gave a really impassioned floor speech the other day. You're one of the leaders in Congress, you, Senator Sanders, a couple other progressives who have, frankly, given a damn about this situation. I wanted to ask you, obviously this is about water and land. The bigger picture here, what do you think is at stake when you're looking at the violence that has gone on and the desecration of land and these types of things?
There are a lot of issues at stake here. In my meeting with the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, in meeting with so many of the people here, what I have heard from them and the reason why I'm here is to help bring attention to the cause of water protection. That is what is at stake, and it is not just protecting the water in this location for these people. That is critical and it is important, but it is also a symbol of the need for us as a country and people around the world to recognize this precious resource that is water, which equals life. Without it, there is nothing else that we can do, and that is the big picture. That is what is at stake here.
And you look at, you served, you're a veteran, the president, Congress, they're all supposed to protect against foreign and domestic enemies. I mean, this is my 5th time here. I've seen directly, people getting shot in the face, point blank range, unarmed people by police, grenades, mace, pepper spray, it goes on. People getting arrested without getting their rights read, all sorts of things. And there seems to be no consequences. It's almost like North Dakota has seceded from the U.S. What do you think about the situation here? What needs to be done? Because by and large, there's more cameras here now, but the media has not been reporting what's actually going on here.
Yeah, it's such a twisted sense of priorities. Again, the people who are gathered here peacefully to take a stand for protecting our water. There have been a lot of other distractions and a lot of other issues that have been raised. And the leadership has not taken appropriate action to make sure that our First Amendment rights collectively are protected and honored, and we've seen what the results of that has been, unfortunately, with people getting hurt unnecessarily. This is, again, where all of our veterans who have gathered here have a great opportunity to help uplift the peaceful voices of those who have been here for so long, to lift the voices of the Standing Rock Sioux, to say we are gathered here to speak as one voice to protect our water. This is not a political issue, it's not a partisan issue, it's not an us versus them issue, it is a life issue. And the more that we can bring focus and attention to that, taking that high road, focusing on that most critical message that's important to all people and all living beings and our planet, I believe that message can penetrate and we can bring about change. That this is not just something that's happening in North Dakota. This is not just an isolated incident.
That's obviously courtesy of the Young Turks. I will leave it at that. I think that, you have to look at why politicians are doing certain things, right? She wasn't running for re-election. She wasn't running for president. She came down because she thought Standing Rock was a war zone. She thought that this needs congressional attention. She saw that the corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they weren't covering this. She saw that this is bigger than just North Dakota. This is about this country. And to me, that says a lot. That said a lot to me. So I think she needs to be applauded for that. Frankly, Bernie Sanders, although he was very verbally supporting the No DAPL movement and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, he did not come down. Yes, he was running for president, so he had to make choices about what he did and didn't do. But he did not come down. She did. And it was a war zone, I could tell you, because I was there. So I think she deserves a lot of credit for it. The thing I'll say to button up Tulsi's run, I think that Tulsi Gabbard brings a lot to the table as far as U.S. foreign policy, intervention around the world. I think that she deserves to be taken seriously. I find it very interesting, by the way, that people like me who reported on Kamala Harris's record are considered racist and sexist. But now, since Tulsi Gabbard announced, oh my God, those same people going after me on Twitter and all these, that I'm a racist, I'm a sexist for just putting up Kamala Harris's donors. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard, she's pro-Assad. She's awful. She's evil. She shouldn't run. Isn't that interesting? So that's not sexist. They're not racist. She's the first Indian congressman, or as somebody pointed out, American Samoan. Everything I read is that she's Indian, so you could correct me if that's wrong. But so she's a woman. She's racist. She's a woman. She's a minority. But taking on her, that's not racist or sexist. Kamala Harris, you're a racist. You're a sexist. You're in line with the KKK. Very, very interesting. So I think it's great news that she's running. I've listed the things that I find concerning about her. I would like the opportunity to interview her and ask her about those things. If we have the funding to go out on the campaign trail, we'll certainly cover some of her events and rallies. They'll be tossing in all sorts of propaganda against Tulsi Gabbard. They'll be cutting things up in little tiny sound bites to make her look like a pro-Assad apologist, and to make her look radical, and to make her look loopy and loony. And they're going to do the same thing to Bernie Sanders. So that's why it's so important for independent media to be out there on the ground reporting on this important time, because you're not going to have it from the corporate media.